Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this special stream, the first one of the EA Talks. And let me tell you a little bit about EA Talks. By the way, I put some music on, some nice jazz music. Let me know if the music is too loud, because of course you need to hear me and not the music. Oh, and then my phone goes on. Alright, fixed it. So, what are we going to do today? Let me briefly explain the idea. So EA Talks is basically a kind of show. I wouldn't call it a show, but where I just casually talk with some people about some stuff. Alright, that's the feedback coming in. So, and today I have a very special guest, and his name is Wakooshi. He doesn't need an introduction. And if you don't know him already, you can visit his website at www.wakooshi.com to find some more information. Alright, hello Wakooshi, how are you this evening?
Hello everybody. Sid here from Wakooshi. It's great to be here, and I love being part of these live chats.
Awesome. So today we have a few topics selected, basically what we want to talk about. It's not going to be an interview or anything like that, but we'll just have some fun, talk about a few things. I see that we only have 5 people online, so that's not too great. It's jumping up a little bit. Alright, so the first thing basically I want to talk about is do a little bit of an introduction, so people that don't know you, tell a little bit about yourself and about Wakooshi.
Okay, so ultimately we started off quite a while ago. I was having an interest in inverts, mantis, a little dibble-dabble in tarantulas and spiders and things, and we did some sort of fruit flies, live food, that type of stuff, and we kind of came in and out of selling those types of products and things on eBay as such over here in the UK. And it wasn't till I guess we stumbled into 3D printing, and then we kind of had a little bit more of a kind of an opportunity then to start working on products that we found would possibly solve a lot of the issues. I mean, unfortunately, ant keeping is in its infancy, and we found that a lot of the nests and stuff hadn't really seemed to evolve for many years. And I guess from maybe it being a small hobby, there wasn't a whole lot of people feeling like it needed time investing, and obviously stumbling across people like Ants Canada, and he's brought a lot of people into the hobby, and he's obviously tried to kind of take things further, and he's developed his range of nests. But after obviously getting a lot of feedback from people, and his designs were fantastic when they came out, they don't seem to have moved much further forward. So it's nice that there's a few more stores popping up like us, who are working on new methods and working in 3D printing and kind of bringing those newer products out, which is cool. Obviously, much like the fantastic Esthetic ants, working on his range of nests.
Oh,
so
basically doing that a little bit. So you said in improving the nests that were out there, and what did you think needed the most, like improving? Like I can name a few, but you said, okay, this really needs improving because this isn't working. Or
I think the biggest thing is making it easier for novice keepers, easier for those beginners, even just making things easier from a maintenance point of view for people who are more experienced. Just through the few years that we've been keeping ants, you learn an unbelievable amount. As you'll know from your channel, from getting into ant keeping, the knowledge that you gain is massive over a short period of time. And there's so much content, there's so much information out there, there's tons and tons to absorb, and obviously all that type of stuff will help towards learning the issues that people are having. There are fantastic Facebook groups out there where you can see the challenges that they that customers and keepers and everyone are having with ant keeping, and some of it's just not having a clear enough solution for maybe the housing of certain species, and some of it is just some small errors that are made just down to things like hydration, nests maybe drying out, so kind of working on improved hydration methods, simpler nest designs, trying to design nests in ways that will combat things like trash piles, and getting the sizes right, and informing people about the right size nest for the right colonies. Because unfortunately the difficult thing from shopkeepers' point of view is no two colonies are the same, because they will be at different sizes at different stages of their lifespan. You've got climates, you've got a lot of variables in ant keeping, and that makes it very difficult. It's not like keeping a snake where you just have one variable because there's one snake. In ant keeping, you've got different levels of feeding, different levels of heating, different levels of hydration, and that will constantly change throughout the lifespan of a colony. So it's just about making that as easy as possible.
Yeah, you say oh no, I forgot what you want to say. You say the nests need to be simpler, but yeah, for the people listening, Wakooshi is very good in making very complicated nests.
That's correct.
Maybe not for like how the buyer looks at it, but your nests are pretty complicated in how it all fits together. I just unboxed the Mercury nest, and it's very complicated. I think if you need instructions to build a nest, it belongs to complicated. So where does this simpler nest idea then fit in?
So the simpler nest idea is more of something that we are starting to come back around to. So where we initially started working on nests, it was more of the modular design, because that was the kind of foundation core of what we were looking at. So a way of making, because ant colonies grow, and you cannot put, unfortunately, a tiny colony in a big nest. It doesn't work out for them in most cases. So a way of combating that is to have kind of more of a modular design. Mm-hmm. So where a nest style that you can expand on. Then obviously some of the downsides to the modular designs is getting those sizes kind of right. And then obviously through developing that range of nests, then kind of through a lot of testing, because obviously the research and development is continually ongoing, and it's probably one of the most extensive things that we work on, is that testing side of things. So like with the Mercury, that was really the first step into making kind of all-in-one self-contained nests, with its primary function of helping a new keeper. Now with the assembly point, that's 100% we get that, because it does require assembly, and that's where it kind of blended into the Venus. Mm-hmm. And the Venus nest kind of does a lot of the same things that the Mercury does. Maybe it's not as pleasing visually because you don't have that bigger outworld with better visibility, but the Venus does bring back a lot of that simplicity and ease of ant keeping, because it's in essence 3 test tubes which dock into a mini outworld. So that keeps things nice and simple, with an expansion port there for when you want to expand things later. So that's kind of the next step into making things easier. But going forward, the nest wise, we are working on making a more simpler style of nests. We're kind of doing a few different things to tailor, because in the world of ant keeping, there are different types of ant keepers. There are the beginner ant keepers who just want things nice and simple. They maybe just want either a small, a medium, or a large nest, which is just kind of ideal, and they just want a small, medium, or large outworld. So those are something that will kind of be tackled from one side. But then there are the more advanced keepers who maybe have huge colonies, who will need very big outworlds, or really big modular type nests, and then there are also those sort of very, very serious, maybe exotic keepers who want species specific nests. So that's a big step. Those are the hardest ones to make, because they require keeping that actual colony. So we have a lot of personal colonies which we use for this research and development, and it teaches us a lot about their needs, and we can then test them in various different nests, various different materials, sizes, spaces. They will test the hell out of the nests from escape prevention point of view to hydration to weaknesses. So we learn a lot from those, and they're helping a lot to sort of push that forward, which is great. So we're slowly working and getting sort of ranges made for various different things. So
So a little bit about this modular system, because it's of course the bread and butter Wakooshi started with, of course. But in my opinion, do you think the modular system is the answer? Because I have questions about that. Like, is a modular system the answer to easy ant keeping, like for beginners?
I think for beginners, modular is not something to worry about necessarily too much. I think if you're a beginner keeper, one of the first, the hardest parts initially is getting the basics right. And I think that focus on getting a nest that's really suited to a beginner species, and just keeping that first beginner species will teach you so much about feeding habits, about cleaning. That's the best thing to do. Getting a colony going is probably one of the hardest parts of ant keeping in a way, until
definitely. You
get to the stage. For most people, I think beginner keepers, they will really struggle with just getting that colony off the ground. That's where sometimes it's good to start with a colony that might have a few workers already.
I also think that the most people only have a colony that's sub 100 workers, because they are very young and fail at this, and that's why I think you can confirm that as well, that most nests being sold are small nests for small colonies, which I think proves that most people have small colonies, and there's just a small percentage of keeper that actually has a larger species, or even more than one ant colonies. So founding is definitely the hardest part. And do you think with the S2 modules, which I think are the most popular nests I see a lot circulating around, do you think that's very good for founding, or do you think it's very beginner proof?
So the modular system is probably not the most beginner proof. The most beginner proof will be the ones that run with some form of a test tube setup. So like the Mercury, like the Venus, you can't really go too wrong with a test tube. They're tried, they're tested. The S2 modules are great. They're a great option if you want to kind of connect them to an outworld. But really those modules, they need some slight tweaking, which is being looked at in Generation 3. So just with regards to closing off the chambers slightly, just to close in some of that humidity, to make some of the ants feel a little bit more comfortable. They work great with certain species, but some of the smaller species, so things like Nicobrensis, they work well. Some of the Campanota species, they work well, but some of the very smaller species, the openings to them, the sort of the hydration chambers can be a little bit large. So depending on the species, they may not be the most suitable. If they're smaller species, you may be better off looking at something that runs something like a Venus, runs from a sort of the test tube type setup. But all the stores are working on various different things. Obviously there's great options like the mini outworld that you do, again runs off the test tube style connections. Mini outworld, they are probably at the moment of all, they're the best types of things to use for founding a colony. They're inexpensive, they're easy to see what's going on, and if something goes wrong, they're easy to react and correct. So for example, they start making a trash pile in one of the tubes, or if the colony's in test tube, it gives you a nice easy option to then move them out. Moving them out of modules and nests can make things a lot more complicated.
So basically what you're saying is that, well, you started out making not too complicated, but a little bit complicated new idea for ant nest, which is the modular system. And basically what you're saying is it's good to go back to the roots and make things just simple. And I always think simplicity is better, and I think the Venus nests prove that more than any, how good they are for your ants and how easy it is basically to found your colonies in them, because you can't go wrong almost. So going back to basics might be the way to go, because for me, oh yeah, sorry,
no, carry on.
So for me, I was also like, okay, let's make this cool modular system, vertical modules, and then modules that go under an outworld and then come above it and all that. And then I was just thinking, maybe I should start simple with just tube connections, because that's what people are used to. Like, figure out something for test tubes, very easy nest, keep it simple, and move on from there. But that was also because I lacked the knowledge how to make more complicated systems. So I mean,
ant keeping, it shouldn't be a complicated process. I mean, their requirements are fundamentally very simple, and a lot of the species will have that very same style of requirements. But yes, it is easy, and it can be really tempting, especially from a store's point of view, to make those really fancy, complicated products that, bells, whistles, does this, does that. But I think that 90% of the keepers out there will be beginner keepers. They will struggle to get colonies off the ground, and a lot of the time they can almost get lost in the choice of nests out there. And unfortunately, with this, maybe something that's going to touch into the we don't approve. There'll people who are kind of thinking, oh, do you know what? I've seen this great Ants Canada video. I want to start keeping ants. They may then think, I want to go to a shop and buy, a nest from the shop. Here over in the UK, if we go to the shops, we cannot buy a suitable ant farm. Period. That you go to the shops, you'll get gel ant farms, you'll get these very small plastic sand-filled nests. They are not suitable for raising colony. They will be very unsuccessful, most likely, if they're not just really just harmful to the ants in general. So there's a lot of misinformation for new keepers out there, unfortunately, and that's where it's great to get as much of this kind of this movement in front of as many people as possible, exactly like this. So
you're putting it on screen right now.
So you're getting nests like that, which they're kind of, it's all well and good. It will keep the kids entertained for a short period of time, but unfortunately, it's not suitable for a growing colony. It can be difficult for feeding them. It doesn't really allow much.
Yeah.
And also it's very difficult to get things like hydration correct. So unfortunately, there's not a whole lot. There's nothing in the UK anyway. In most pet stores or anything, pet stores don't even stock stuff for ants. So you go to some of the sort of toy shops and kid stores, they will stock products like these, which are relatively inexpensive, maybe £20, €20 approximately. But there is, there's little worth in them.
Yeah, it looks like even on the product picture, they are feeding the ant like chips or something interesting, like nachos.
Yeah, looks like a nacho or something.
Yeah, exactly. So you told me that you actually worked in before all this, you worked in a place where they sold these things, right?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. Good old. Back in the day, long time ago. Worked in Toys R Us, these were actually
okay.
It was Toys R Us when they were still around in the UK, and they were incredibly popular gifts for things like Christmas time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was knowing, I didn't know then anything about ants, but obviously it did always spark a curiosity into it would actually be really cool. Unfortunately, at that time, the internet wasn't what it was, and it was very difficult to buy ants online.
Yeah,
and it just wasn't a thing that you really bought live products online at that time. So I'm guessing, I'm not too sure how they generally work. I'm guessing these are mostly designed just for the keepers who just want to collect ants outside and put them in there. But if you want to be a real ant keeper and have an actual colony, those products they're not the products for you. But unfortunately, that's for being a keeper is all they have access to. So kind of the nice thing from a store's point of view is to give people that alternative. And there's a lot of fantastic creators. There's a lot of fantastic community projects, DIY options, which is great. And that's what it'll be nice to get to the point where those things almost don't exist anymore.
Do you think, like, I see still so many people tagging a little bit into the We Don't Approve movement, buying gel farms and like these sand farms, which are, I guess you can keep ants in them. Do you think you can keep a colony in them? I don't think. Well,
to be honest, I wouldn't even waste the time testing them.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's just I see very little long-term benefits from them. The gel itself can be a little bit of a pain in the ass to actually work with. Quite often you have to make mixtures and warm them up in the microwave and then pour them and mold. There's a lot to it.
Yeah, but that's about the gel farms, right?
That's the gel farms, yeah.
With the sand. Because the gel farms,
with the sand.
The gel farms you of course can't keep a real colony in, I think.
Yeah, those. So if you mean sort of more of a classic style, a bit like the Ant Store has these fantastic ones with these sort of glass vertical, sort of viewing ant farms, and they're fantastic, and they have this very cool medium which the ants can chew through. Which is fantastic. The advantage to what they're working with glass, and that doesn't have any flex or any movement over time. So it's a very stable material to work with. Unfortunately, it's also a very tricky material to work with. Requires sanding edges, specialist equipment, cutting tools. It's not the easiest material to work with. So it may not be something that, and also it's extremely heavy and is very easily damaged during shipping. So it's kind of not high on the list of things to, and not only that, again, before we start looking at those types of things, because I look at them as almost above and beyond products that I'd almost classify them as maybe the non-essential category. I want to get back to the more of the foundation essential nests, and I think they're what more beneficial to sort of ant keepers. So just kind of bring things back, almost pull back, still work on the specific nests. They're an ongoing project which we're really I'm really excited about. But I think just bring it back home to just make nests that are really good for new keepers, or that can be really good expandable options for things. So yeah, those vertical nests, there's a small, very niche market for those, but Ant Store have nailed it. So there's little demand for another store to be making a similar product.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem with these sand nests is that people move. Usually people that buy them, of course, don't know much about ant keeping, and they'll move the queen straight into these nests, which of course then they will die. I also don't know if the sand that's in them is a really good digging medium. Definitely when it gets wet. So yeah.
I mean, I've not done any experimentation with it. I'd be curious to know if chambers, how often they collapse and things with regards to if the medium dries out. I think the sort of the substrate and the type of medium that you use for it is very, very crucial. So again, it's one of those things where beginners possibly could run into trouble through not necessarily having the right setup there. So just trying to get things as bulletproof and as simple as possible, so that it's just a case of, if you do these 2 steps at this kind of regular interval, you won't have to worry about the hydration, you won't have to worry about this, and you won't have to worry about it very regularly. That's kind of where I want to get things to. So it's just very simple. Then it's just really all that needs to be worried about is maybe just the feeding side of things.
Yeah, I hope we can leave those. We can change a lot of people's opinion, definitely about gel farms. Um, because I don't know if you can confirm this, but I heard that gel farms were created to test how ants dig nests in zero gravity.
I believe that was true. Yeah, it was part of
NASA experiment.
a NASA experiment. Yeah, because obviously the gel provides the hydration as well as the digging medium. But I believe because it's solid as well, that probably has some play with regards to zero gravity as well. Sand would probably be a real nightmare in zero gravity.
Yeah, I think so too. The ants wouldn't be able to dig. Um, but oh yeah, the ants would actually fly, right? Yeah, in zero gravity.
Yeah, so I think the reason they probably picked gel was because the ants, I imagine they would, where they lift it, they can walk along the gel, and then they will place the gel down that they've dug on top of other gel, which would cause it to stick. So it wouldn't be floating around, I guess.
Yeah.
It's
interesting if we could get that footage on how that works.
Yeah,
Sad that
definitely.
well, maybe it's somewhere foundable. Chat, start looking for it. Gel ends in zero gravity. Maybe we'll find something. No, that will be very interesting. So at the beginning of the stream, you also mentioned a little bit about making nests for certain type of species. And I don't know if there is a nest specifically for a species that is out now. I don't think there is.
Well, you've got things like the polywrap
species.
for dives. I think
the
weaver nests are probably the only one. And then also you have leaf cutter setups as well. So there's one or two, but actual nests. I don't think I've seen any.
Yeah, I mean on your website, I definitely don't know anything about.
Oh no, nothing across the store yet for sort of anything species specific yet. There's as you know, there's ones for acorn ants which we're working on. A lot of trial, a lot of error, a lot of testing different type of styles and hydration. Escape proofing is the difficult thing there. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's a tough one with that, but it's just getting the hydration into the nest without the ants escaping out of whatever type of way you hydrate the nest. So yeah, that's the trickier thing there. Bull ants and sort of Harpegnathus. Luckily the weaver the weaver ticks off one, but it also rolls into potential for working for a leaf cutter setup, which is something we'd like to blend that into, which is quite cool.
Yeah.
It was kind of always developed with that in the background of being a kind of foundation for not only one but working for another as well, which would be cool. But yeah, some sort of larger chamber thing for those larger species, larger ground-based sort of trapjaw colonies and things. So there's a kind of range for those larger ground-based, soil-based species, which is cool. What else is there?
Yeah, but how does it come to life? So I know you keep Harpegnathus venator in a special designed nest for them, but how does that idea come to life? So like you buy the species and then think, oh, let's try to make a nest for.
Yeah, great question. So ultimately, it comes down to, first of all, just finding a nest that they will be comfortable in, and actually just kind of, so there's no die-offs, that they seem happy, that they producing brood. And then it's often just learning from how they react in that nest. So we sort of tried keeping the Harpegnathus a few times unsuccessfully in various different nests before we got into really heavy into the 3D printing, into the sort of generation 1 nest before there was gypsum inserts and that type of stuff. The hydration just wasn't suitable for them. They didn't like 3D printed nests. They need I think because of the structure of their jaws, their mouths, I think they require their hydration to come from quite often from substrate, from the ground. they can't use things like liquid feeders because their jaws get in the way. So then you run into that kind of tricky spot where you've now got a species that can't use liquid feeders, can't use really water feeders. That makes things very very tricky, because you now have only an option for natural setups.
Yeah.
So and until then it'd been really difficult. I'd seen them kept in Waitong quite a lot, but then once we were working on different things and we started testing with the gypsum, it solved it, because they gave them that option to drink from the gypsum blocks. So when they're hydrated, they can now get their moisture source, which now meant that solved that first issue. Then after keeping them, realizing that they actually love to kind of terraform their setups, so they will move substrate here from there. What was really interesting was we kept them, still keep them while we're working on the other nests, in an S4 module, and it has a water feeder, like a water dispenser in the module. And what they actually did was they brought cocoa fiber from the outworld, and they stuck it underneath the water feeder so that the water would feed into the substrate. And they then built a kind of almost like a roof of substrate, of wet substrate, all the way channeling in to the gypsum block. So they made this, they kind of created this almost like a water transport, like a funnel.
So
and
cool.
and then it transfers the water from the water dispenser into the gypsum block, so that it keeps the gypsum block hydrated. So they move things around, they terraform to make the environments right for them.
Yeah, very interesting, like how ants do that. I can confirm the story a little bit. Well, not with Hopknaut Venator, but with my own Lazy Niger colony, which is currently in the Wakooshi S2 module, and they also took sand from the outworld and like made their own little nest inside the gypsum, inside the plaster block. So it's very cool how ants do that, and definitely can see. Well, you can basically learn from those ants what structures your nest need to be, because that's what they are making. So
not only that, they teach us a lot. I mean, it's based from that. That's a lot of we've had a lot of pictures of that happening, where the ant colonies are closing up that entrance. So they are. I mean, it looks like what they're doing is they're trying to make that chamber where the moisture is smaller. So it could be that they're trying to do it to make themselves feel more secure.
Yeah.
It could be that they're closing the entrance off to keep humidity inside. It could be just that they're closing the entrance off so that it's more difficult for predators that are large enough to cause them problems getting into to damage the queen or attack the queen. So there's it's difficult because we can't communicate with ants to understand why they're doing things. But
could it be like a heat thing like that?
Could be heat. Could be any. This is why there's a lot of tests that need doing. There's so much research that this community can do, that all the ant keepers can contribute to, sharing photos and talking on Facebook and Discord. It's fantastic that that you can see so many photos and so much cool stuff happening from what people are doing, what colonies they're keeping, and that teaches the stores. That's fantastic for learning that. Okay, cool. Well, I can see that there are a lot of colonies are closing that off, so that will now have a direct impact on future designs.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's they teach us really everything we need to know.
Pretty interesting question here in the chat. Is giving building material better in the test tube? Personally, I would say no, because if sand gets wet, it acts like Wakooshi said, like a funnel. So basically, all your sand will get wet. But I have seen some ants, like I believe it were bull ants or trapjaw ants, in a test tube that need soil in their test tube.
That's very true. It does depend on which species you're talking about. There are certain species that will definitely require some form of substrate, because they require it for the brood to develop, or they may well need it just to feel more comfortable. Sometimes that creating that moisture channel or that moisture, sort of gradient from the substrate can also help with raising the humidity in the nest in the tube. So that will also then make them more comfortable. So it's a difficult one to answer if it's better or not. It's more of, does it suit that species more?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then of course test tube like plaster inserts, which we've seen pop up everywhere, are a very good solution to that, I think. But if you have to water it yourself, definitely very hard for founding queen. I think if you need to manually water the nest every week, will be hard for founding species. I think. I don't have any experience with that, but I can imagine that. Well, in founding stage, you want the temperature, humidity, and stuff. You want it as stable as possible.
Yeah,
so
again,
you don't want
I think
to interfere.
I think it's very dependent on the species, but this is what I think is so great about ant keeping, that there's still so much that ant keepers don't know and are learning all the time. I don't think many people have the 100% correct answers. There's a lot that I think still needs to be discovered in the ant keeping, and it's such a new hobby, and there's so many new species coming into the hobby, and their requirements are so different, and I think there's also a lot of myths and a lot of old information that which is great. Why there's a lot of what I see now on YouTube, there's a lot of people running these experiments, like Ant Holifer is running, he's done an experiment with his Lassus niger. He's doing another one based on light, on the difference between how a colony develops based on how much light they've received, whether they've got red light, the heat. So that's going to be quite interesting, as well as obviously JB from Ants and the Colonialist is doing experiments. So it's nice to see a lot more of these things happening, and that.
Yeah.
Sorry. The that's where that's where a lot of the it's nice to see that a lot of the lost my train of thought now. A lot of the content creators are doing these experiments, because I think that we do need to get to grasp with how true certain things are. Like, for example, having the store, I get the opportunity to run some very mild experiments behind the scenes. Don't unfortunately have the time to document a lot of them, but things like, for example, we had a batch of Mesobarbarus queens, which everyone knows are very sensitive to light and vibrations and things. So it's kind of one of those where I had 10 test tubes where I kept them in pure darkness, and 10 test tubes where they are at room light level. And what was actually very interesting was all of them developed the exact same pace, same workers. So that's where it's becoming interesting to see that there are maybe a few myths. I'm not saying that they don't benefit because it wasn't run long enough. That's where it'd be nice to see sort of more experiments being done on things, but test into some of the myths behind ant keeping, that people just assume that red light is essential for ants. So it'd be cool to see more experiments with that. Yeah,
definitely interesting to do more experiments. I am looking for some experiments to do, and there will be mainly in printing, I think. But yeah, I have to wrap my mind around that, because some experiments seem doomed to be failed, like the Antolifer Ligniburda experiment. That seems very questionable to me if that would actually work. But it's definitely interesting to try out, like how many Larsis flavus queens you can actually keep together before they start killing each other. But yeah, you always have to wonder about the ethical side of these experiments as well. Like, of course, I can put 1,000 Larsis niger in one tube and see what's happened, but yeah, that wouldn't be too ethical.
100%. I mean, there's some experiments that will definitely be more beneficial to the community than others. Obviously, I think there are also certain experiments which won't necessarily provide much benefit to the ant keeping hobby, but they can generally be interesting for some. Obviously, naturally, you don't want to put any ants under any risks, but sometimes there are those experiments where if they're done by a content creator in the right way, they may well stop other people trying that, because like with the ants holofer, that was one of these myths that was out and about, that some people were saying that you may be able to keep more than one queen together if they are a species where the queens are sort of known to be the main reason why they don't have more than one queen, as in the queens attack each other and not the workers attacking the queens. So there's a lot of that. And
polygyny, I believe.
Yeah, possibly. So that's where it's nice that when you don't have any evidence of that myth will just keep spreading around. And that's where it's nice where what Alex is doing, where he's taking that experiment and almost proving or disproving it. So from an ethics point of view, he may well be saving a lot of other queens being put through this experiment privately. So by making it more public, it can, so there's certain experiments which they may be slightly controversial, but they also in the long run might save more queens by stopping other people running these experiments.
What do you think about multi-species colony? Because I've seen that a lot popping around. And usually it's like, let me think, like Lignipurda, and then what do they put as well there? Like Temnothorax or something?
You've got Temnothorax, because there are those passive, very I'm trying to think. I've seen a few keepers who have them. I think Marana Plus bicolor, I think, I think they're also a species that can be mixed because they're very inaggressive, and they can also defend themselves. So they're generally not messed with by ants, but they're generally fairly peaceful. There's one or two others that we've come across as well, but I know there's people that do that. I think it can become a little bit trickier. It depends on the setup. Quite often, a lot of the time, they're kept in natural setups where the colonies have got a lot of room and things.
Yeah, but do you think they will actually work?
They do work. Yeah, I've seen them work. Yeah, I've seen them work.
Okay. Yeah,
but
that's one of those things that I think of. It's very questionable if... Yeah, I can't imagine it working. It would also look very weird. I think the Lignipurda queen will get killed because it will take 2 years for 10 workers or something.
I think it depends on the species that you're keeping. The ones that you have together are very crucial to whether or not it will be successful or not. But I think if you had like an acorn ant colony in one corner of a big natural setup, and then a Lignipurda queen in one other side of it, they would have very little interaction with each other. So generally, there would be very low risk, and they probably could co-inhabit quite nicely. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Ants Global is asking this question, which I see a lot of people ask. Definitely ask you, is how to change the tube on a Venus nest when you have the colony inside and it's running out of water.
Okay, now I actually made a couple of videos to show Ant's hood, because obviously one of the controversial things about that was about the sort of tube changes. From the ones, so we have I've got about 20 of them.
Where can we find these videos?
The only problem, that was private. It was shared with him privately, so I unfortunately don't have it to hand. But what you'll find is most species will occupy one tube. So depending on the species that's being kept in there, for example, I have a founding Mesa barbarus colony with about, I think, 50 to 100 workers. Mm-hmm. I use one of the tubes. I just keep it completely empty, and they use that as seed storage.
Yeah.
And they will sit in one of the two other tubes. Both of them are kind of kept usually at different amounts of water, so that when one runs out, the other one's still kind of half full. And I tend to just alternate between the two of them, because when one fully dries out, what you'll find is generally there's maybe like three workers or so might be in that tube. What can be, you'll find that most of the ants will usually they'll be in the one main tube where the whole colony and the brood and the queen sits. Some of the easiest ways that I've found to change the tubes, depending how quick you are at changing them, because they're just a simple click in, click the new one in.
Yeah.
If you're rapid enough with that, you can just do it without using anything. And also depends on the size of the colony, because what you'll find is generally if they're very early into the development, maybe 15 workers, there will be no ants in that sort of tube that needs changing, and you can just quite easily just lift it out and put the new one back into its place without any issues. If they are a little bit bigger, you can just wait till a moment when there's as minimal ants in the tube that needs changing as possible, and then just open the outworld lid and just put a little bit of cotton wool blocking the hole into the tube. That way you've got no risk of ants running out of that hole or getting further into the tube. Then it's just a case of undocking the tube and replacing it with a new one, and then the few ants that are in the tube, just tap them into the outworld, and that should be the easiest way of doing it. There's a few, it's very versatile. There's a few people that have different methods of doing things. It's difficult to give a one size fits all solution, because it does depend on how many ants and what species and things are being kept in them. But from the vast amount that we keep at all different sizes, generally it's just a case of the easiest one. If they're bigger, just a little bit of cotton wool blocking the hole, slide it out, and then replace it.
Yeah, I think it also wouldn't be too hard to do, because I have my mini outworlds which only use 2 tubes, and I change tubes all the time.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be too hard. Like, I even have a much more riskier feeding system where you take off the whole top of the outworld, and you can apply zero barrier and stuff. But so far, I haven't had any problems with it, and my biggest colony I have in them is now 50 to 60 workers. So definitely, I think the advice I can give most people is just be patient. Just wait until the ants are gone, or there's always a time where there are no ants, so just be patient.
Yeah, exactly.
And otherwise, just think before you do it, and that will save you a lot of.
I mean, seal the sort of the most sound advice is just seal off the entrances, even if you just want to seal off the entrances to all 3. Just that way, it just stops anything going a little bit out of control. If they've got a lot of workers, that was actually the Mesa Barbarus colony that I just saw. Yeah.
That was also the colony you were referring to.
That was indeed, yeah.
Awesome.
They're much bigger than that now, so they're probably twice that size.
Early picture. Oh, so cute. The workers drinking from the feeding dish. Yeah, so that's a problem I recently encountered, is my ants drowning in
cotton wool.
Yeah,
cotton wool will solve that. Yeah, it's one of the best ant keeping tips for species that just put a little ball of cotton wool in whatever it is, or just drop the liquid onto the cotton wool. It will absorb it all. It also helps with stopping a sticky mess if the water inside the liquid evaporates and then just leaves the sugars behind. That can just create it can encourage garbage and things. So it's great. It's a great tip that for if your ants, if you give more than they can consume. Obviously some species will just completely soak up every drop of it very quickly, not too much of a worry. But for smaller species especially, like in one of those photos there was a Fidoli Peely colony, I believe they are.
I think it's pronouncing it right.
Yeah, so in that one there, they I think it's the down one. That's the one. Yeah, that's the one there. So those guys there, they absolutely need because they will swarm. They will swarm any sort of drops. So if you fill a dish up with them, they will swarm it, and they will swarm so much that they will create layers, and they will trample each other down into the liquid. So it's not even workers falling in; it's just the point where the other workers will drown the other workers getting to it. So very essential for much smaller species like that.
Yeah, I have quite a funny story about that. So I tried that for my Fedori Polydula colony as well. I took big cotton ball and yes, basically sprayed it with the cotton candy from the ant lady. I put it in the outlet for them to drink. What they actually did is they used that, I guess, humidity to move the entire colony next to it. Like it was like they thought it was a nest or something. So yeah, that can also happen, which was quite interesting to see.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah, so they actually moved the colony next to the ball, and the queen was actually sitting on it.
Maybe they just liked it that much they wanted to move in next to it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the day after they moved back in, so that was quite interesting. I also have a question for myself, basically, and that's I had my Nicaraguensis colony, which is doing great, around 50 workers, and I had them in the Ant Lab Fusion nest, and I had one test tube connected for water, and they moved the whole colony back into the test tube, which was quite weird, and they won't go back again. So I'm a bit like, what should I do? So
they tend to like humidity. It can be because of the humidity swings. So Waitong is a fantastic material for ants to sort of live in. The only downsides to them, because of the very massive surface area that Waitong has, it can absorb water very quickly, and it can also evaporate water very quickly. And because there's a lot of air bubbles inside, it can't hold a massive amount of water, so that can result in sort of swings up and down with humidity.
yeah,
Because it was a material that I looked at sort of very early on, but what Ant Labs has done with the fusion by slicing it has solved a lot of the issues that you have with Waitong, which is evaporation through the outside of the nest, which is what most Waitongs used to be, just solid Waitong blocks, and they were very difficult to keep the humidity in. So it was nice that they did that, but one of the slight concerns could possibly be as to how much hydration the sort of slice can hold. So it may be that they're just preferring the humidity inside the test tube because it's more stable.
Oh, we have actually the ant lady joining the chat. Great to have you here. So she says the fusion nest little and often works best for me. It's also what I found out. But I'm a guy that easily forgets to water his ants, and I think that could explain the humidity swings.
Yeah. So I think the ant ladies nailed it there. That because of the swings in hydration, that they're not one you want to hydrate a lot less often, because you're massively saturating the nest, then it's drying out. Whereas, like what the ant ladies mentioned, little amounts more often will keep that balance level.
Yeah, one viewer said that it might be colder in the test tube than the nest. But I turned all the heating off for my ants because it's 30 degrees in my room at the moment. But yeah, so I don't know if it's actually true, but maybe it could be because it's more open that it is more a little bit colder there. But that seems a little weird to me. But yeah,
sometimes
ants know what they like best. So
they do. I mean, that's one of the great things with them. They know what they like, and sometimes that's where it can be just possibly give them some choices. It's nice to start seeing that people are opening things up and giving ants more of a choice now, which is nice. It's one thing that I'm looking to try and do going forward more, is to have more gradients in some of the nests and things, and give ants more choice as to what they find is more suitable. So choosing to run heat cables through various locations or sides and things. But similarly, sometimes trying ants with different nests, because some species will love one nest and absolutely hate another. There's certain species you just cannot. I'm almost certain you'll probably never see Polyrhacus dives colony in a acrylic nest.
Yeah.
They just sometimes the way that they have evolved just doesn't suit those types of nests. So some nests will love whitong, some species will love whitong, some will love gypsum, some will love an evaporative hydration. So there's a lot of so giving ants choice is great. If they're happy in the test tube for now, then just keep them in there, because it could just be something that maybe they feel more comfortable in there because it's more compact. Maybe the nest was feeling too large for them and they feel more secure in the test tube, because it may mirror more like what they're used to in their natural environment.
So Circle Barney, that's very not cool. I sadly have to remove you from this stream, because that's a behavior we don't allow. And it's a good thing the ant lady can laugh about it. But yeah, that was not nice what he said there. Oh, it's also on the screen. Wait, let me refresh it real quick. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, there's always one of them. And I completely forgot what we're talking about.
We were talking about Unicos.
Yeah, and then about the Polyrhacus dive in acrylic nest. Yeah.
I think they're just probably, maybe they just find the tube for now at their current stage of development. It could just be more suitable for their current founding stage.
Yeah, I think so as well. So a very interesting question two actually very interesting questions in the chat. It's one, will there be ports with round connection ports so we can connect other ant nests? And I believe they are available already for a long time.
You've got so if you're talking about the Outworlds, there is the MS adapters, which will convert the standard link system to just a round connection for 50mm tubes. The Generation 3 nests are dropping the links and they are going to tubes. So just to keep things more simple, because we've had a lot of people who want to connect their old Outworlds to maybe to Wakooshi nests, or Wakooshi nests to another, so there's a lot of requests for tubes, because I think they're just much more accessible worldwide. So yes, going forward there will be and also we're changing the connection systems of the nest so that you'll have more of a choice of what connection your nest has. So there'll be little adapters that will change any nest of Generation 3 to different size, to any size tube. So if you wanted to connect like a 10mm tube or a 12mm tube or 15, there'll be more options going forward. But yeah, at the current stage, there are kind of MS nests which use tubes, or there is an MS nest adapter for the Outworlds if you want to make your Outworld use a tube, if you wanted to use the round ones. The reason we chose the hex connections was, as you know, 3D printing, because of the overhangs of round. It was easy. Mostly it was just because of the machines that we originally used. They weren't very good at handling overhangs in 3D printing, so you had this kind of sagging of material which didn't create a very round, which became a bit of a pain. Things have moved on, hardware's improved, that's no longer an issue, so that's why we're moving over to the round.
Nice. That's I think a great improvement. So another interesting questions. You guys are doing a good job with the questions, because we are kind of a little bit about because usually Wakooshi gets always the same questions.
No, this is good. This is good. We're getting some different.
These questions are decent. Yeah, very good. So, do you think AliExpress products are good? If you allow me to go first, personally, I think that it's my show. So I think AliExpress nests are decent, but usually they aren't made for founding colonies. I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, to buy AliExpress nests that are way too big for colonies that are way too small. And I think they make them especially for like Asian colonies, which grow usually very fast. and then they are not really made for the slower growing campanulas and European species. But that's my opinion. Now also the bamboo tubes, which I personally don't like because they're basically a one-time use. But I know a lot of people are in love with them. What about you, Wakooshi?
Okay, so where to start on this one? Now, it's difficult because they sell a wide range of products on AliExpress. Some of them are good, some of them are terrible, but most of them are, one thing that goes along with all of them is they're generally usually very cheap, and very accessible worldwide, which is great in itself. I think even the video streaming on the thing at the moment is using an AliExpress Outworld, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So, little things like that. I mean, I'm just looking at it now, and that looks to be a great little solution. I mean, how much was that Outworld?
I believe it was like €6 or something, if not less.
How can you go wrong? It looks to be like there's pretty good escape prevention in that. Inexpensive. So they're good for some things, and that's, I think, the main thing to take from them. Bamboo tubes, they are great for certain species. There are some, they're not perfect. Obviously, sometimes it can be tricky depending on the type of design that they have, because some of them can be difficult. I've lost a few, that I trialed with them for a period of time, looking at working with them. I'm actually working on a range of my own bamboo tubes, so just not using slightly adapted versions of them, because personally I'm not a massive fan of the chambers, because if they drag any food, because I had a bad experience with a few colonies where they've dragged food into the chambers at the back, and then that food has then gone bad and gone moldy or rotted, creating bacteria, which it may have contributed. The colonies just didn't materialize out of those, unfortunately. Whether or not that was at fault or another matter, I don't know. But it was very frustrating when you can see this garbage in there, and you want to get it out, and you cannot. And there's no opportunity that I'll ever be able to get that out, which was a bit frustrating. So there are different designs which they don't have chambers, and I think that those are possibly a better design or a better option to go for. But those refillable bamboo tubes, they have been successful. They do work very well for certain species, so they definitely have a place in the ant keeping industry, which is great. Also, with regards to some of the nests and things they sell on there, obviously I think everyone knows that they do have those kind of cheap acrylic nests with the type of sponge, and I haven't seen many people have successful colonies out of them. I'm not a massive fan that they don't seem to offer any. None of their nests seem to really offer much in the way of light protection. They all just seem to have nests that are fully exposed, where the ants are fully exposed to light elements. They are cheap. They look good, and I think that's one of the main things that they might focus on a little bit more, is making their nests look fancy. But how successful they are is another question. I feel like they may be just targeting people who want cheap ant farms that look good. Yeah,
it's definitely for kids.
Someone's
the way
made
to
a few
go.
comments that they're not escape proof. Okay, I haven't tested them, so I'm not too sure on how well they work with escape proofing.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Quite a lot of them,
because my Fidoli escaped out of the Outworld you saw, and it's because the holes were, I believe, they are exactly 11 millimeters, and the tube is only 10 millimeters. But then I have tubing from AliExpress, which is 11 millimeters, so that fits perfectly. So it's all these little things that if you don't know about them and you connect them to your original tubing, it most likely won't fit flush, and then the ants could escape. So yeah.
Well, I think that that's obviously one of the benefits when you're kind of, it's like anything. There are companies that focus more on customer service and will, be able to provide solutions to problems that does pop up. I mean, obviously that's one of the that's one of the negatives from AliExpress is it's kind of you will get what you order, and you then have to maybe find solutions to issues that possibly pop up. So I think, like I said, they have a place, but like you mentioned, I think a lot of the nests and things can be tailored to either targeting beginner keepers by making nests look good rather than being fully functional, or they seem to be very tailored in the direction of the ants that they might keep over in Asia. So of course, obviously things like trapjaws, harpegnathus, those types of, like trapjaws are a very big, very popular colony, and there's a lot of other types of ones that they keep over there, and they like those soil-based nests. That's why there's a lot of those type of gypsum block nests that you can kind of see, the all-in-ones with the built-in heating and lighting. I mean, again, I'm not the biggest fan of having lights inside a nest, but I can, again, they're targeting selling a nest that people will want to buy rather than that the ants maybe necessarily want to live in. I mean, I imagine those lights are not on all the time, so it's not really a massive issue. But again, they seem to be focused on selling. They're there to sell nests, sell products. Some of their products are sort of very cheap, so there's definitely a place. That's a great question.
Yeah, and we also shouldn't be too biased about it, because I know there are lots of antstores that import the nest directly from AliExpress or Alibaba and resell them. For example, Ant HQ, and there's nothing wrong with that, of course, because they're making it. You get the customer service, you get the shipping, and they also do quality control. So they told me. And yeah, I don't know how it's for you, because I know you get a lot of stuff locally. But for me, as a starting business, I have to rely on AliExpress to send me certain items, like the bottles from my liquid feeders or the sponges from my nests, because otherwise, yeah, it isn't possible to make them for that amount of money if you all need to buy those locally in the grocery store or something. So you have to buy those.
I mean, China's not going anywhere. I mean, it's where a lot of the raw materials, a lot of the parts, accessories, rubber bands, all kinds of stuff, acrylic, everything originates most of the time from there. The filaments, everything, it all eventually usually comes from China. So they're doing their thing. It's inevitable that it's a growing market. They're doing a great job of bringing the costs of things down in a way. Unfortunately, I think they lack a little bit when it comes to the customer service side, and obviously there's the possible language barriers and things. But so obviously I've seen some comments and ladies thrown out there. Yes, unfortunately in the UK, they've changed. Some things have changed so that now there's VAT is charged from AliExpress. So unfortunately, because of Brexit, there's now everything is 20% more expensive on AliExpress because the site now charges VAT up front. So
interesting topic, because I recently heard that it's the same for European countries. So it's going to be the same, that all packages that are above €20 or something, that they have to be charged as well. So it's going to change for everyone in Europe, and it won't affect big businesses, of course, but I think the smaller guys it will affect really hard. Definitely people starting out, but hopefully that will bring some more new companies to light, which focus on, let's do what they do in China, but then here in Europe or something. Or you will get a shipping company that takes away the tax. I don't know. They will figure out something, I believe. But I heard that Europe is gonna be hit hard as well.
They're it's a little bit out of our control, unfortunately. We just have to roll with it and see how things go. It's pretty annoying. I must say, so far it's been nice that Brexit hasn't affected things from a fees point of view. From feedback we've got back, we've not had customers getting hit with any importation fees and things, which is nice. Things change, I think, in July, so we'll have to see how things
definitely
go with that, which may change things slightly, but we'll kind of do the best we can to still keep that supply chain going. But
awesome. So there was one that asked a question. It's an often used question, but it's a great question too, I think. And the stream Ninaturo also says latest order also no fee, and that was a large order, so yeah, that should be all right. So people, don't be afraid to order from Wakooshi. No, you still can. So before 1st of July, save some money, buy some stuff, because after that it might look a lot worse. You never know. So final question before we wrap things up, because I'm almost overheating like my ant colonies. And then suddenly all the people start subscribing. That's always nice at the end. So the question was, is there anything exciting that's going to be released soon?
That's a good question to finish up on. Right,
yeah.
So okay, so things are super busy with keeping on top of orders and everything at the moment. So it's making things very difficult from a product launch. Also, there's a lot of things going through heavy testing, just wrapping things up. We sort of, one of the things we tried to do was have regular launches, and I think the Weaver was the one that really sunk in the most, where that took much longer to just get the final. Probably didn't help in some ways with all the feedback that suddenly was being thrown around for the Venus Nest. We had a ton of feedback because it was a very popular product, which I wasn't probably so prepared for, in a way that there would be that many reviews, that much feedback in such a small space of time. Obviously, products are always changing. There's probably no product that launched and had never been tweaked or slightly redesigned or something changed as it went on. But nothing had as many changes done in the first 2 weeks as the Venus did, with regards to relocation of heat cables, tube fittings, ports being added for expansion, to the point where it's just so different. Fundamentally the same, but a lot of changes happened very short space of time. But that required so much redevelopment and tweaking and adjustments and things like that. So that kind of slowed things down a bit, and then that also delayed the Weaver launch slightly as well. So and then just how busy things have got with the summer. Obviously, it's a busy time for ant stores, not just from ants that stock, but also people needing nests for ants they've got from nuptials and things. So it's a really, really difficult time, unfortunately, to get new stuff out without overloading the sort of the order process too much. And that's the main priority, is just keeping the order lead times down as low as possible and not get out of control. But to answer the question, the next launch will be probably the Earth, which will be not an upgrade, but will be a slight difference to the Mercury.
An alteration,
which is nice. Which will have it'll be sort of a more extended outworld, with twin tubes. So without spoiling too much, it will be like a slightly bigger version of the Mercury, which will be nice, and that will probably solve a lot of the wants that we get from people who have the Mercury, who maybe say, oh, it would have been nice to have another tube in there. So or they wanted a longer outworld, or just something that will hold colonies for a longer period of time. So that will probably be the next one coming, and then a few more as well. I think winter time there'll be a lot more of the stuff in development hitting the store towards end of summer, early winter, and then it'll be a focus for getting the whole new generation 3 ready for spring next year.
awesome. So yeah, very hyped about that. It's cool that all the new stuff is involving, yeah, like we said in the earlier stream, about the basics. So everything is coming around, so that's very nice. The whole story is completed. So yeah, for the people interested, I released 2 new nests today, a vertical nest and a mesh nest. And I don't want to brag here, but there are 2 things that have never been done, as far as I can tell, in the ant keeping world in 3D printing. So they are very, very unique nests. That's not saying they are perfect. Still need to wait for a lot of feedback and make changes, but for now they are very interesting, and I think you should check them out. The link is in the description. Also link to Wakooshi, but you already knew how to find them probably. And I think it's a very nice way to wrap up this stream. Thank you all for being here. I don't know if Wakooshi wants to say anything.
Yeah, just thank you very much for tuning in, guys. Obviously, make sure to subscribe to EA if you're not already. Just drop that in there, and
Nice.
there will be a lot more of these things to come, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Hope you all liked it. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you maybe on the next EA Talks.